Hey, everybody. Welcome to Raising Excellence. I'm Mike Friedman, and I am really, really excited for our special guest we have today on the show. And it's someone that needs no introduction to our local community. It's none other than our principal at Lake Mary High School, Dr. Mickey Reynolds. So, Dr. Reynolds, thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm really, really excited. This is going to be a good one.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike. I'm really happy to be here.
I know I stopped by. We chatted for a little while last week, and just some of the things you were saying, I said, "Man, this is gonna so insightful to so many people. I know it's gonna help." So what you have to say. So
Awesome.
I'm really excited. One of the things that we talked about that I thought was really really cool, and I didn't even know this myself about you, is that you actually went to you've been a Ram for a long time. I mean, you went to Lake Mary High School as a student, and now you're the principal. Your dad was the first principal, so like when you're walking down the hallway, like what does that feel like? Do you have any like old nostalgia that kicks in, memories, or are you just like you locked in and focused on what you're doing today? Like how does that
Well,
work for
I
you?
mean, yes, there is nostalgia because have the unique perspective of when I was in middle school. They selected my dad to be the first principal of Lake Mary High School. So every night around the dinner table, even as they were building the school, and he was interviewing people and putting together his staff and deciding on library books and all the things, he would update us. To have all of that information from the very beginning and literally about how the school was built and to be on site during the construction phase, then so excited.
Wow.
I entered Lake Mary the second year it was open and ended up being the third graduating class. And so when I walk through the hallways, of course, we still have our pictures of all of the teachers of the year from the past and the principal award winners and Miss Lake Mary and all. So there's always nostalgia wrapped
Yeah.
up in everything we do here. And frankly, we try not to forget about the past because everything has built
Right.
to where we are today. But
Right.
I am pretty laser focused on these kids that are in this school right now, I have to say. But it's like also surrounded by memories and nostalgia. So it's pretty cool, really. It's pretty cool.
I mean, it's got to be. I mean, that's got to have this has cement a lot of pride in you. It's not just somewhere where you've been kind of inserted to do your job, but like you grew up there. That's literally your home. That's so cool.
Y
I
It
mean,
is,
like
and
going
it's
back.
absolutely personal for me
Yeah.
because when my dad was named principal, it is every principal's dream to open a new school, just so you know. When you get to choose your own staff,
Okay.
when you get to put in
Yeah.
place the building blocks that are gonna create the school culture for years to come, that's a great opportunity, and, every principal would love that, and not very many principals get to do that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
knowing what his priorities were, to lay the foundation and move forward. And then he's still alive. He lives a few doors down from me. And so
Right.
several times a week, I'm over at his house telling him everything that's going on at Lake Mary High School. So just to have that connection, it does mean a lot. It means a lot.
That's awesome. I bet that's great for him too. He's still plugged in. And so too, you were like a team. That's so cool.
He loves it. He
Yeah.
absolutely loves it. Yeah.
I mean, when do you remember like if I mean a lot of people can look back and look at their career where they're at today and remember like a moment in time, like a defining moment, say that was it. That was why I made the switch. I knew at some point I was going to be doing what I'm doing today. Do you remember like was there a time when you said, that's it? Like this is the kind of, leader I'm going to become. And this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what I'm called to do.
Well, I have to admit, I didn't go into college thinking I would be a teacher. And I had planned to be an officer in the Navy, if you want to know the truth. I was
Wow.
in the
Okay. Okay.
ROTC
I didn't
unit
know. Okay.
at the University of
Wow.
Florida. But some circumstances changed, and I ended up becoming an English major and then an English teacher. And I love teaching. I To this day I love teaching so much, and I really didn't know if I would leave the classroom while I was teaching. But then I got my master's. I went ahead and got my master's in the ed leadership from the University of Florida, and I started on my doctorate in educational technology because I was so interested. This was a while ago, and so technology was just coming on the scene, and
Yeah.
I was so interested in how that might transform teaching and learning. And then I was still in Gainesville and I got the call, I found out that Crooms as an IT school was opening. And it was the first
Okay.
laptop school, one-to-one computing, so exciting. And so I applied for and got the job as the first technology facilitator there, which is someone who teaches the teachers how to integrate technology. That was my job for the first 2 years. But then an assistant principalship opened up at Crooms over all of the technology
Okay.
program. And I was like, okay, this makes sense. I got my ed leadership degree. I've been working on doctoral coursework in educational technology. This is a great job, And so
Right.
that's how I got into administration. I really it wasn't a goal of mine, until the right
Wow. Okay.
situation presented itself, yeah, and then in that role, I grew a lot as a leader and really, could, hone in on what my leadership priorities were, and
Right.
then I was moved to Seminole High School for 2 years as an assistant principal, and then a principalship came open at Winter Springs, and I thought, "You know what? I feel I'm a student of leadership." In the meantime, I'd gotten my doctorate in leadership, and so I thought, "Well, let me throw my name in the hat and see what happens." Everybody told me, "You'll never get the first principalship you apply for. You'll never get it, but you need to do it, go through the process." Well, lo and behold, they offered me the job, and
You got it. Yeah.
so then I was sick to my stomach because I'm like, "What have I done?" Because I'm
Yeah.
it's a big
That's a
it's a
huge,
big step.
right.
It's a big
Sure.
step to take to go from being an assistant principal to a principal because suddenly you're in charge of everything, and you're
Mm,
responsible for everything. I think, that
right. I
responsibility,
get it.
I understood it, watched my dad all those years, and I understood how heavy it can
Sure.
be. But
Yeah.
I dove in and I spent 5 years there, and then one day my boss came and sat down and said, "Hey, I think we're gonna move you to Lake Mary High School to be the principal." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, back to my old
You
stomping
were
grounds."
excited about that, right?
I was,
Yeah, I know you're excited. Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
always you
That's
always
awesome.
really feel, you know you have special feelings for the school that you went to, and I had a great experience in high
Yeah.
school. So
Right.
yes, I was very excited, and I've been here now for 9 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that you have really, I feel like a really unique perspective because this is like you live this, through your father and through all of your experiences all the way through what you did in education academically. So, I mean, you have really unique perspective. I mean, when you look at kids where they were maybe 15, even 10 years ago to where they are today, like
Yeah.
what do you see some of the challenges that teens have today versus back then?
My goodness. The difference between when I started teaching and now is incredible. And even the past 10 years, so many changes. Um, I think that these cell phones and use of social media has put a kind of strain on our children that when we first started, I remember I was at Crooms when people first started using social media, and we were all really kind of enthralled and like, "Oh, isn't this cool? This is a neat way for kids to communicate." And
Yeah.
we didn't have the foresight to see really down the road how toxic it could be. Entertaining, yes, can connect people in certain ways, yes, but also the darker side of being very
Right.
toxic and you know, kids can be so mean to each other. It's harder to be mean in person, but on social media, you know, and then the self-esteem of teenagers, it's fragile, it really is. And so anything that has the potential to make you feel less than and attack that self-esteem is not healthy. So
Now. Yeah.
we can't I would like to put the genie back in the bottle some in terms of so I
Yeah.
mean I use social media. Anybody who knows me knows I post all the time only in a positive way. I just brag on these kids. I post their accomplishments all the time on my Instagram, my principal underscore Reynolds Instagram account. And I love doing that. But by raising my own children who are now 19 and 21 and working with these students here, I see the nefarious side of the social media,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
frankly, the access to content that students should not be seeing, and like that really concerns me, the violence, the pornography, things like that.
Right.
It's not good for a developing mind.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, those are some of the challenges. I was so concerned during the pandemic because of the students who did isolate and stayed home, you know? Here, I missed 1 quarter, that 4th quarter, but, I got right back into it and encouraged as many students as possible to come in person. You know, I worried about the isolation, and, we saw the effects of that, for a long time. The isolation, you know, online learning can be a benefit, but online, isolated in your bedroom, not good for kids, not good for kids. They need
Right,
to be active.
right.
They need to be socializing with other people, adults and other students in person. They need to be expressing themselves and developing those communication skills. And
Right.
yeah, so those are some of the changes. A positive thing though, I think that came out of the pandemic was because a lot of students either were forced to or chose to isolate. It seems like when everybody started coming back to school in person, there was more of a sense of urgency to get involved. Like, I see more
Right,
student
right.
participation in clubs and activities today than I did pre-pandemic. You know, some
Yeah,
students
and
had
that's
gotten a little apathetic pre-pandemic, and then when everything was taken away from them, they were like, you know, these kids remember, "Oh, man, I don't want that. I wanna be in it," you know? "I wanna be active."
yeah. You know, you touched on a couple really good points that I want to unpack a little bit. You talked about the social media and you talked about like the nefarious side and what that, how that can impact people. And then you also just talked about, you hit on something really, really important, I feel. And it's a connection aspect, right? And even
Yes.
though maybe we feel like we're connected, like social media maybe gives us that, yeah, we are connected, but it doesn't do the same job as like human connection, the energy, all that, right?
It's not the same. It's not the same at all, you know? We really see it. We really see it here. Like I said, I've seen it in my own children, raising my own children.
Yeah, yeah,
But there's such a difference between even video chatting with people and just being in
right.
person, being, you know, around them, seeing all the 3D facial expressions, body movement, you know, experiencing
Yeah,
things together. That connection is really critical. And as a staff here at Lake Mary High School, we also really value the connection with the adults on campus and the students. We
right,
make
right,
sure
right. Uh,
we know our students. We know things about them and their lives, and we can talk about their interests and that they trust they can come to us. And so the adult to student connections are really important too, really.
Yeah, you just touched on something I think is really important. We put a lot of emphasis here, with our leadership kids too. And that you mentioned about, reading the body language, reading, how the shoulders are moving and being
Yeah.
able to interact. And that's, when we talk about leadership, we say that, leadership for us starts with you have confident communication, which is the eye contact, the
Mhm.
shoulders,
Mhm.
how the structure is, and then, clear voice, having that voice so people can understand. And the second part of that would be then awareness, right? Like aware of what you're saying, like that sensory acuity, and then making decisions based on that in real time, right? And yeah,
Absolutely.
you can't you lose that through a screen, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
so
you do.
when when you look at like the clubs you mentioned post COVID, people really buying into that, which I think is awesome. You have to do it. Well, and is that's a big part of student success then, right? You would say getting involved in the school, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's what, you know, when we have this, we just recently had 8th grade parent night. We have the 8th grade parents come in and I don't speak to the whole group for long, but my priority message to them and to the 8th graders when they come and visit the school on their field trips or tour is you must get involved. You must find something you can connect with to get involved in an extracurricular way because those are, you know, school, we try to make school very engaging, but it's those extra activities, it's the interests that you have
Right,
outside that give you the well-rounded education and really give you some of those unique experiences with your peers. Because like with in a classroom, the teacher's really directing the activity, right? It might be interactive, it
right,
might be engaging, but our clubs are all student led. So these are
right.
students who have an interest starting a club and bringing together like minded students and they lead it, you know. And I just think And then, of course, athletics and arts, it's clubs or activities, I say, because it can be an athletic activity or an arts activity, but with a group of students who share a similar interest to you, I think
Right.
really strengthens some of those bonds. And also, it's a little less scary to develop the social connections when you already know this person has a common interest, you know?
Right.
And I
Right.
just
And then
see, yeah, go ahead.
I think it's interesting too because I don't know this to be true, but I would speculate that a lot of parents maybe before they you spoke to them about that might think for their student to be successful in high school, it's really a measure of academics, right? And then, yeah, they can get involved in something if they want to. It's up to them, but I'm really, really focused on academics that's the measure of success, right? In high
Well,
school. But yeah,
there's a
I would
lot yeah, there's a lot of soft skills that the students
right.
would learn through these activities, the extra activities. I
Yeah.
tell you, I was traveling through actually, the superintendent visited yesterday, and I took her to our robotics class. This is the first year that we've had robotics during the school day as a class. Before that, it was always after school as a club, and we have a group of teenagers that come together. They build their own robot and they compete against kids across the state in a it's called First Robotics Competition. But I just let the seniors on that team who are taking the lead explain the whole process, and they manufacture their own parts. They design their own parts on a technical
Yeah.
design program. They put everything together. Just explain to the superintendent. And there were a couple of seniors in there, and I was blown away. These kids are so smart. They could speak about their passion so eloquently, so articulately, and I think, if they didn't have that activity that we gave them a space to do that in school,
Sure.
where would they be spending their extra time? And they're developing all these skills along with it. So yeah, you could take a manufacturing class, but then if you are on a robotics team who needs to manufacture a part for the robot and you use that knowledge, you know what I'm saying? So the activities add a whole nother level, and they help
It's a whole
develop the
nother
soft
layer.
skills. Yeah, a whole nother layer, and help develop those skills that they might not get in an academic classroom practice with as much. So, yeah, a diverse experience in high school, diverse activities beyond the classroom. I
Sure.
think it's really important.
And do you think that I mean, it seems like, my son went there and every time I was on campus, there's always I feel like there's a special kind of culture, at Lake Mary High
Mhm.
School, being around. And it's kind of like, it's immersed. And I believe it's, for most people, it's like it's just after you're there a while, it's just internalized, right? Like that pride. And
Yeah,
so
that's what we really try to instill that Ram pride every single day. Yes.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, what are your thoughts on, now we'll shift to kind of more like a leadership kind of conversation, I guess, but creating culture, creating that ecosystem. How, if you had to say, okay, this is how we do it, because I feel whether you could be a parent at the house and maybe you're trying to create a better culture in your family or maybe in your community or your civic group, whatever it is. What would be your advice to do that?
Well, the first thing I would say is, to to instill pride in your organization, whether it's school here and the students, you want to build a sense of pride to be part of that group, right? So if it's whether it's a family, like proud to be a Reynolds, why is that? Because, you know,
Right.
here's what it means to be a Reynolds. You have those
Right.
morals and those ideals that you instill, and then make that a point of pride. Like, I'm proud to be a Ram, and here's why, because we're into our school. We're into our school. We root for each other. We have a standard of excellence. We want to always be striving to be better,
Wow.
those things. And I think you can do that no matter how small or large the group is, whether it's your family unit, your community organization, and show up and show up for each other. I think a big part for us is, the kids. It's so funny because even with the adults around campus, they're always like, "Are you coming to the game? Are you coming to the play? Are you coming to this? Are you coming to that?" I try to make as much as I can. There's a lot of activities that go on around here.
Yeah.
In a
You got,
family
you're
unit,
busy. I
if
know.
you yeah, but if you even in a family unit or a civic group, you got to show up. You got to be all in,
Right.
and that creates a sense of pride, you know. And then my dad taught me this, and it's so true for parents, whoever, whatever leaders. You got to brag on people. You know, it makes people feel good. Brag on, you know, yeah, brag on people for their accomplishments, even the little things. A student holds a door for me, or picks a piece of paper off the ground without being asked. I'm like, wow, that's incredible. Thank you so, just brag on people. That makes them feel good. And it creates that sense that we're here for each other. We're here to support each other, and we're going to acknowledge and we're going to celebrate, whether it's small or big acts that are the
Right.
kind of things we want to see in our kids. We got to celebrate it.
And then when we do that, we're telling them, "Hey, I like what you just did." Right. And then
Hmm.
they're like, "Oh, wow, I got to recognize. I want to do more of that." Right. And so we're kind of creating that
Validation.
that
Hmm.
behavior that we want. Right.
Yes. 100%. Yes.
And so, we talked about culture. I'd like to know about, you mentioned the eighth graders coming in, right? If you had to
Yes.
tell a parent, these are the one or two top behaviors that they want to have internalized by the time they come in as a freshman, what would that be?
So,
They believe to them.
yeah, so we actually we have a saying that we say on campus all the time, every single day in the announcements. It's all over the school. Be respectful, be responsible, be engaged. And then a few years back we added, and be the change you wish to see in this world. But the first three in particular, I would say, should be worked on from the time, that they're toddling. Um, Respect
Yeah.
is so important. Respect is so important. Even, we see people don't like people who are disrespectful just right out of the starting gate.
Yeah.
And
Right.
and I find a lot of students in this day and age too will say, I'm not going to respond to somebody who doesn't treat me with respect. They have a very sense of respect being important. And you've got to model that, and you got to teach students, what does that look like? What does it look like to be respectful? Being responsible, take care
Right.
of your business, to clean up after yourself, you know?
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Be
And so
accountable.
yeah, responsibility is a big thing. Take care of your homework. Don't procrastinate. And then engaged is the third one. And we just take that so seriously. Engage in your school, engage in your classes, engage in extracurriculars. Those are the three things that it's now our mission statement. A few years ago, when we went through accreditation, we said, we've got a mission statement, but then over here, we're saying this saying all the time. That is our mission for the kids, to
Right.
be respectful, be responsible, be engaged. So we really instill that. And I would say, if I had to give advice to parents with eighth graders coming into ninth grade, and I say this out loud to eighth grade parents a lot, don't pump the brakes because it's high school. Don't step back and be less engaged with your children just because it's high school. Sometimes they think, oh, they're growing up, they're in high school, they've got this. No, they don't have it. They
Right.
don't have it yet.
Right.
You
Yes.
have to monitor everything. You have got to stay on Skyward and monitor grades. You've got to
Right.
really pay attention to who your child's friends are, who are they hanging out with. You know, don't
Right.
don't leave anything to chance. When they're getting to their junior, senior year, you might could back up a little bit, but not totally, because they're just a gradual release. But in ninth grade, 10th grade in particular, monitor everything is what I say, because a kid can get lost. A kid can, man, I love teenagers, but the
Yeah.
hallmark of being a teenager is lying. You'll lie to your parents about, "Oh, no, I turned that
Yeah.
in. I got
Exactly.
that te I did
Disguised
well on
as
that test."
freedom, right? Disguised
Yeah,
as, yeah, these are right.
yeah. So you got to I say to the kids, and this is a military, phrase, "Trust, but verify." Verify everything. Yes.
Right.
Don't
Yes.
let up.
We call that
Don't let up. Yeah.
we always call that inspecting results. We'll ask the students to do something, we're watching, we have awareness, we're making decisions in real time, and then we are always, inspecting and then making changes from there. So that would be
Yes.
a good tip for a parent, always inspecting.
Inspect what you
And I
expect.
I I I I love what you said about the mission statement too, because you can go so deep with that, right? Like when you talk about engaging, you can even look at that. And the way I look at that also is look, don't be, you know, be proactive. Don't be reactive in life, right? I mean,
Yes. Right.
engagement is active being is going forward, right? And you can
Right.
just look at that in so many ways.
Even
And
in
responsible
teaching
is
your
about
child,
accountability.
yeah, even in engagement, even in teaching your child to advocate for themselves,
Yes.
some children are very reluctant to, if they don't get a concept in an academic class, or they don't see a grade in the grade book but they know they turned something in, to go to the teacher and advocate for themselves. Or when
Right.
they need a little more explanation on a concept, they're embarrassed and they don't want to.
Right.
And so it's such a skill to be able to speak up and advocate for yourself and understand that that's what you should be doing as an engaged student.
Right.
So that's another skill that parents really need to work on with their children.
That's a great point, and just teaching them young how to advocate for themselves, right? And
Yes.
using their words and how to show up.
Yes.
That's one of the things that I think is so important. It's probably lacking for a lot of kids I see is them just not understanding how to show up the right way in the world, right? We get back to
Right.
energy and eye contact, and they don't. They maybe they feel a little, I don't want to say less than, but maybe it could be they feel less than,
Mhm.
and so they're afraid to kinda stick their head out of the water and ask and kinda raise their hand and ask for help sometimes.
Well, some of the best students have been so compliant. They're so compliant their whole lives. You tell them to do it and they're going to do it. And so they might too see, asking for that clarification, or, advocating for themselves as being disrespectful, but
Right,
it's not. And that's what, teaching them the difference of, when to use your voice, that's not disrespectful. It's advocating for yourself, when the difference is. And
right.
so it's some of our most nicest, most compliant students who are nervous to do that. So,
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. It's what they've been how they've been, it's the habits
mhm.
all their life, the things they've been doing. So, is there anything that parents could do or just be mindful of that, right? And just try and when those situations or opportunities present themselves, try and work that into just a daily routine?
Yeah, I think it's really important for parents, yeah, for parents to be constantly conferencing about, grades and assignments, and, did you understand this and how come your grade dropped here? Was there something you didn't understand? Have you talked to your teacher about that? Have you asked for more clarification? I think the at home, that's why I said don't let up, constantly be in that grade book, looking at what's happening, so then you can help advise your child on what to do. If I could go back on my own parenting, of course there's some things I would do differently. Something as
I think
simple
we all
as,
would, right? Yeah,
yes, oh my goodness, but something as simple as, when your children hit middle school, they're old enough, even before that, to step up to a counter and order for themselves or pay for themselves, to have those experiences in public where they're speaking with an adult about a transaction. I just think along the way, I wish I had pushed my kids to do that more and not quite done it so much for them, you know? And I think that it's just some of those little actions done consistently to make sure that students understand they can have a voice, they can speak to adults. It's good to advocate for yourself. If you have them consistently along the way, you're gonna help build that child that's not afraid to do that.
I love that, and I love and it's funny because I reflect on the same thing. I could do so much better now. I think everybody does later on, right? That's one of the things, right? Like, but I think that's a great point. Even like when you go out to a restaurant, right? I know a lot of parents, oh, he'll have the
Yeah.
cheeseburger with the
Mhm.
fries. But if they can
Right.
talk, why not say, hey, you order for yourself? That's
Exactly.
just think, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
It took me a while to get my daughter to order for herself. She was just kind of, I mean, shy is a word to use, but
right.
um now, she's a freshman in college, and yeah, she's on it. I mean, she can handle anything, I feel like. But you have to build towards it.
I think, kids, and maybe this could be some of our doing, right? Because we teach them, stranger danger and be
Yeah.
careful, and we teach them, a strange adult could be this person who doesn't have your best interest, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of it's navigating through that, right? So
And what's funny to me too is that my children teach me of things to beware of in a way too. It's nice to have that relationship with your child where they can feel comfortable to say back to the parent, well, you need to watch out for this. I mean, I think about, you know, AI and fraudulent emails and
right,
phone calls. Older people sometimes aren't as the kids seem to be very astute about that. And so my
right.
son teases me all the time. He's like, "Man, mom, you are the worst at detecting AI in the world." So it's his
Yeah.
mission to kinda to train me on what is when I see content, video content, especially video content, things to look for that it was AI that created it. He's been trying to help me with that because he's really good with that kind of stuff. So it could go both ways. They could teach us too.
Yeah, which makes him feel great.
Yes,
Here he
of
is
course.
showing
Yeah.
I know my son does that too. Like I'll be doing something, he'll grab the phone, be like, "Dad, let me do it for you." I'm like,
Yes,
"All right, thank
exactly.
you." And my
Awesome.
own phone, which is kind of embarrassing, but I mean, when you see kids walking down the hallway, could be a freshman or sophomore, like when you see this, what do you see when you see a kid and something really stands out and you say, "Man, that's parenting done right there," or "That's great leadership. I like what that person's doing." What are some of those actions, behaviors?
So, yes, and I see it every day. And a huge one for me is manners. Honestly, good manners. I'll tell you a quick story. I took an Uber to work today because my car's in the shop. And so my Uber driver, when he found out I was the principal of the school, was of course asking me questions, you know. And I was bringing in a card table, a fold-up card table for the Black History Show. They needed a card table. They were going to sit around a card table. So I had the card table folded up in the Uber with me, and the Uber driver said, "Now, when I pull up here, will one of these students help you with this card table? I bet they won't, will they?" And I said, "Oh, 100% these students will help me with this card table." You know, I find adults don't realize how many helpful
Right.
students there are. Yeah, and when I see and so anyway, it was kind of funny because I was approaching the black gate and I had my keys out and this boy comes running over. He's like, "No, no, don't do it. Let me get the door." And I said, "See, you proved my point within 2 minutes of the
And you
conversation."
probably look back at the Uber driver and there you go, right?
I
Or
mean,
is he
but
gone already?
it's to teach the kids manners, to pay attention to who might need help and jump in and help, hold the door, you know, help somebody carry something that's heavy, help somebody with their keys, whatever. To me, when I see kids doing that, I'm like, okay, they've been raised right. You know, that's definitely one thing. When I see our
Simple, right?
students,
Very
so
simple
simple.
things.
Yeah. And being
It's
nice
like
to
we
other
say,
students
simple
is,
but not easy.
yeah, yeah. And sometimes, we've got our students. We have our students who are exceptional education students out here. And we have we have a whole crew of students who work with those students. You know, they work with them, they do activities with them, they high five them in the hallway and talk to them and treat them, like a regular old person. When I see that too, I'm
Right.
like, okay, that's good parenting. Yeah. You don't need to avoid different. You don't need to avoid different, just treat people like people and be good to them, and that's a wonderful thing.
I love what you just said that. You said you don't have to avoid different. And I think for a lot of people, that makes them, for whatever reason, you're right. And I see that. A lot of people struggle with that. But I love what
They
you just
do.
say. You don't have to avoid different. Just be like everybody else. And I love what you said about respect. Actually, that's the life skill that we're working this month in our
Yeah.
academy. And
Cool.
we
I love
define
that.
respect very simply. Yeah, we just say it's just treating everybody with honor and kindness. Honor and
Mhm.
kindness. People, things, could be your pet and yourself too. And a lot of times I think we forget about that, right? Like we forget to treat ourselves with respect. The things, the
Yeah.
messages we say to ourselves. So I love
For
that. I
sure.
think
That
it's where everything started.
I think another lesson, if I had to say for parents, for your children is try to teach them not to be too hard on themselves. I was just thinking of sometimes that negative self-talk when students are too hard. Have high expectations, but understand that sometimes you're going to fall short. Sometimes you're not going to hit the
Right.
goal that you planned for yourself. That doesn't mean you're a terrible person. That doesn't mean you're going to be a failure in life.
Right.
Learning how to deal with failure, and not even just failure, but just not necessarily achieving the goal that you had set for yourself. Learning how to handle that and to regroup
Right.
and reset that goal is critical.
And I love that because that's one of the things that we see with a lot of kids nowadays, and maybe not even nowadays, but when people have high expectations, which is awesome, but then they don't meet them. So when they, whatever the word we want to use, where they fail or stumble or fall short, what does that mean to them in that moment, right? Like when they don't hit it, and that's what they have to recalibrate, right? And they have to say,
Right.
this is actually a good thing because I'm getting better,
Yeah.
I'm getting closer to the goal, or whatever, right?
Yeah, I've been reading
I
actually
think it's
recently, I mean, not just recently, but our students are going to have to reinvent themselves over the course of their lifetime because of the way that technology has changed so fast, and
true.
because the role AI will play coming up, that it's, predicted that they're going to have to reinvent themselves potentially in terms of their careers. Like they might go down a career path that then, because of the way technology is, oh, I've got to figure out a different path. And that being able to handle rejection or coming up short or failure and being resilient about still
Yeah.
moving forward, maybe even in a totally different direction, is actually the critical skill we need to be teaching in this modern era. Yeah.
I'm glad you touched on that because that's one of the big things I personally, it's one of the biggest challenges and really just really hurts my heart that I see. And it seems like it is more and more. I think the stats kind of back it up too, but we see kids really struggling more with anxiety, with
Hmm.
depression. And what do you think are some of the things, maybe culprits or some things we can do to maybe reverse the trend?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's hard and I know your kids are going to argue with you, but limit screen time. Don't give them all access to everything on the internet at a young age. I just think it's so harmful. Make sure they are engaging in activities that are in-person activities. Make sure that they are, engaging in healthy activities that keep them physically fit. I think, you know, kids can really get wrapped up in seeing online what they think are other people's perfect lives and theirs fall short, and it messes with their
Yeah.
self-esteem. Or just some kids are mean online, and spending too
Right.
much time seeing that negative content can really impact a student and really riddle them with
Right.
anxiety. I see way more anxiety than when I started teaching. I didn't even know any
Right.
kid who had anxiety when I started teaching. I'll be honest with you. We
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And so you think a lot of it is due to social media, things like that.
access, they shouldn't have their phones in their bedrooms at night, to be honest with you. Middle school
Right.
is a critical time. Don't let them go to bed with their devices.
That's
Put those
just bad for your
devices.
sleep cycle, right? Yeah.
Yes, and, you don't know what time they're waking up and scrolling and seeing all this stuff, and just, my dad always said nothing good happens after midnight. But that's true,
Yeah,
with
true. Yeah, still
yeah,
true.
just
Still true.
being on devices and all too. It's not good for them to have it overnight. So that's something I would definitely consider as a parent. Don't give them full access.
No, no, yeah, and I want to touch on this a little bit because we just touched on it a little bit, but when kids fail,
Hmm.
how do you what's your thoughts on, you have a teenager that fails? It could be a game, it could be whether it's in sports or academically or in a club or socially or whatever it is, they're trying to reach the next rung on the ladder and they fall short. How do you pick them up?
Well, I think that's so important. First of all, let them be upset. I think that's the first step. If they're upset, if they want to cry about it, if they want to grieve about it for a little bit of time, let that happen. because you need to feel the feelings and not be told that your feelings aren't valid. When we said, "Don't cry about that, that's just a game." Well, that's not validating their feelings. So I think the first step is to let them feel the way that they're feeling and let them get that out. And then, you know, make sure that you are, yeah, make sure that you are talking with them. Okay, you were disappointed. This was a big disappointment. What steps do you want to take, to regroup and set a different goal or move forward? I know our boys soccer team, they so wanted to make the state tournament and recently, and they had a really tough loss by one goal. All the boys were, I mean, they're 16, 17 years old, and all the boys were crying. They were upset, and you know, I want them to express their emotion, and then afterwards, and they were upset for a few days, and that's okay. But then afterwards, the underclassmen, I started hearing them talk about the kind of training they were gonna do so that next year what they would do differently, so that next year they could position themselves to maybe get to that state tournament again. That's a very healthy mindset. Okay, I'm gonna grieve. This stunk, and
Right.
I wanna grieve with my people, but now let's start to thinking about, okay, what else can I do? I didn't hit that goal this time. That goal can still be out there. What can I do different? What can I do more? Is very healthy, and sometimes for your seniors, for example, well, they don't get to reset their goal because they're gonna be graduating and going off and maybe they're not playing soccer in college, you know? But then for me to as far as regrouping, say, you'll always have all those great memories. Remember, you participated, you were there, you guys achieved a lot. Let's look at what was so positive about the whole experience,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
can you
Yeah.
you could carry forward into future experiences.
We have a rule here that I like, and we frame it out whenever there's something like really good happens or something that was like really, really devastating to a person.
Mhm.
Our rule is you got 24 hours. Like
Right.
if it's a win, you have 24 hours to celebrate that win and it's done. Now what are we doing? Or if it's a loss, right? You got 24 hours to grieve. And all right, we gotta pick ourselves up. We gotta move forward. And that way it doesn't like, bleed into like
Yes.
possibly, days and weeks and these depressive kind of states, right?
Yeah, you don't wanna let it go on too long, and then there's that point at which you need to start recognizing what was positive about the experience, even if you did fail or even if you did come up short. There's a point at which you got, "Okay,
Yeah.
done my grieving, but now I gotta look back and say, 'Hey, what was really great about that?'" Because there's always good stuff, you just gotta be able to recognize it.
I mean, what would you say, if you can give parents a sense, and you could give them a sense of, you give parents a sense of, hey, this is something that you want to do unintentionally. You may be unintentionally doing this, but some things that they could do that they maybe do that you see that they're unintentionally harming their kids, right? Not physically harming them, but maybe slowing them down, slowing their growth down a little bit. Like, what are some things that parents do that unintentionally may slow them down or actually hurt them? What are some couple things that you've
So,
seen?
yeah, so I see a lot of parents who get very into the sports. They come to the games and showing up is so important. And I've said that and I'll keep saying that. Just make sure, that you aren't criticizing the players during the game or going overboard criticizing the coach. The coach is almost always someone that the kid looks up to. The students aren't always scrutinizing the coaching as much as sometimes the parents are. Coach,
Oh
why
yeah,
did you put in so and so? Why'd you take my kid out? Sometimes parents go too far with
oh
that and
yeah,
it sends the wrong message to the child. You know, in most
right,
cases, if a child isn't getting the playing time, the avenue is to go to the coach and say, "Hey coach, what do I need to work on to get more minutes?" And so
well, how do we
instead of
improve? What
just
do we need
bad
to do?
mouthing, yeah, instead of bad mouthing, teach your kid to have that. We talked about advocate for themselves and say, "What can I do?" and put it back under their control and in their arena. Don't unintentionally
Right,
let your kid be the victim. And I think sometimes
right.
parents let "Oh, that is just that teacher just didn't like you. Didn't like you. That's why you got a C on that paper." Well, no,
Sure.
probably not.
Yeah.
There's probably a rubric and you fell short somewhere. So go to teacher, what can I do better next time? I want to get that A next time, not that C. What can I do? Put it
Right.
back in the control of the child, not let the
And,
child play
it's
the victim.
and it's probably a hard thing for a lot of parents, right? Because a lot of parents, I mean, don't look at it like that. Like intrinsically, every parent loves their kid like more than anything. You want your kid to win. You want your kid to be so successful. But yeah, a lot of parents probably don't and they go to the next level and they become protectors and enablers. And then what happens is they're actually kind of counter counterproductive to one of the mission statements that you had, the parts of it, right? About accountability. So you're not teaching them to be
Yes,
accountable, right?
exactly.
You're teaching
That's
them
the
to be
biggest thing.
entitled, which is the opposite.
And also sometimes making excuses for their children, you know. I mean, teenagers are going to get in trouble sometimes, and it's
Yeah,
okay. I would tell you I would tell you the biggest argument that we have from parents whenever we call on a discipline referral or a discipline situation is cheating. If we catch a child cheating, and so many parents are just, no, my child would never do that. Never do that.
wow,
Well, let me
wow,
tell you
really?
something. Every child will do it. Every
Yeah,
child will do
yeah,
it.
yeah,
If given an opportunity and thinking they can get away with it, it doesn't make them a bad
sure,
person.
sure,
It's them trying to, I mean, they may be getting a little advantage and trying to, get a little one up. It's not right, but don't
sure.
then make excuses and say, that can't have happened because my child would never do that.
Wow,
What's the message there? I don't know. Understand that
not
your
a good
child is
one.
fallible.
Yeah,
I know. Understand that your child is fallible. Your child is going to make mistakes. Try to get to the root
yeah,
of it. If you really believe that, if you really believe it was something that the child didn't do, then teach the child
right.
to advocate for himself. You know.
Yeah, that reminds me of something. And look, these could be like really good kids, but like you said if given the opportunity, they're gonna take it,
Yeah.
right? Like, and if they haven't learned
Yes.
it, if it's so easy and available, they're probably gonna do it, right? Like
Yeah.
I remember I used to work for a bank a long time ago in my previous life, and whenever we went into the vault, they always had something called dual control, right? Because you can have
Mm-hmm.
a person with great ethics and great morals, but if that person is suffering like financially in that moment, and you walk into the bank, you walk into that vault on your own, and you see a stack, and you see 50 grand, 100 grand, you're like, wow, like this could pay off my mortgage or something, right? And you
Right.
think no
Yeah.
one's around, like you can be enticed to do something you normally wouldn't do, right?
Yeah. And sometimes
So
kids are convinced to do things by other students and they just feel peer pressure and they go along with it.
yeah,
It's just
yeah,
it's a mistake to think your child will never make a mistake. This is
right.
a time period where kids are making mistakes and learning from them. It's what they take away after they've made the mistake and how they learn from it that is important. So don't
That's the
harp
key.
too much on a mistake as much as what you learn from it, what you take away. And then, if it becomes a pattern, well,
Yeah,
then something different has to be done. But understand that your child is going to make a mistake and that mistake could be cheating. It really could.
right. And this is how we deal with it. I love that. So we come to the part of the show. This is one of my favorite parts called quick hits. So I'm going to ask you a question, and you just fire away. First thing that comes to your mind. Okay. So the first one
Okay.
is every teen, every teen more needs more of this. Every teen needs more of this. Every teen needs more of
Every teen support.
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 Okay.
So
Okay.
I don't think you can give too much support. I think you have to give some freedom and you have to let kids do for themselves, but just moral support, being there, saying, I've got you, I'm behind you, I'm gonna show up for you. Every kid needs as much of that as they can get from as many people possible.
Right. Tell them I got you. I got your back. I'm not happy with the choice you
Yes,
made, but no matter what, I'm always there.
I love you.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
do you think those 3 words so simple, right? Do you think I don't know, like, do you think maybe enough parents just don't tell their kids that enough and just say, "I love you" all the
There's
time?
some who don't say it enough. Yeah, there's some who don't say it enough. I mean, even every time I talk to my children on the phone, that's and my husband too. It's not just my kids, but my husband too. That's how we end the phone call.
Yep.
I love you
Yeah, we
because I
do too.
don't want to be I don't want to be that leave that conversation and then you don't know what's going to happen next.
Right.
And
Right. You never know.
if your last words can always be I love you, isn't that a wonderful thing?
But I love that. Like these are great takeaways. And you know what? If somebody listens to this show and they get nothing else out of it except to say, I love you, I got your back. That's a
Mhm.
great win, right?
It is. It's huge.
All right, here's the next one. Here's the next question. The biggest mistake parents make with kids is
The biggest mistake that parents make with kids is making excuses for them and covering for them. And we just talked about it a few minutes
Mm,
ago, but you don't want to set up any kind of expectation for children that as your parent it's okay that I cover for you or lie for you or take the hit for you. They're growing up, they're learning, they've got to learn these things for themselves. They've got to learn how to make mistakes and recover from them. So don't take the hit for
mhm.
them. Don't make excuses, don't cover up, don't lie for them. That's not the message you want to send.
Okay, love it. Next one, excellence means
Ooh, excellence means showing up, setting goals, constantly working towards that goal, and constantly shifting your goals when things don't work out. Showing up every day with a goal in mind. That's excellence to me.
effort. Always pushing, always striving.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Last one, last question. A student who is struggling should hear this. What do they need to hear?
They just like we talked about, I love you and I've got your back. And it's okay. It's okay if you don't feel okay every day. Let's talk about what we can do together to help you feel better. Yep. Got to know that you're
Awesome.
willing to be by their side, do that work with them, get the resources they need, and that it's okay that they're not, because ebbs and flows, my friend. It's an emotional time period, adolescence and teenage years.
Yeah.
And some kids are going to feel sad sometimes. They're going to feel disappointed. They're going to feel lonely. And I just validating and saying their feelings are okay, but let's talk about how can I help you, get the resources you need, or how can I help you turn this around? How can I mentor you through this? I think it's important.
They have to
Validate and
know,
then
and they have to know that you're their safety net no matter what, right?
absolutely 100%.
Yeah.
I got your
I
back is
think
so
maybe
important.
that's probably a mistake that a lot of parents make that mean well. And again, they love their kids, but they just mean, but maybe they don't say I love you enough, or maybe they are a little too hard or judgmental at times, right? And
Mhm.
so that child maybe does struggle a little bit with knowing, hey, does my mom or dad, are they there? Are they that safety net unconditionally? Like, do they have my back? And
Yeah,
maybe
and I
that's
think it's
when,
really important too. We haven't really talked about this, but your child is not necessarily going to be the spitting image of you. They could be very, very different. And to let your
yeah,
child know that that's okay is also really important because sometimes the kids will feel that pressure that my parents expect me to be just like them. And
right.
what you want is a happy, healthy, thriving child. You don't need a mini me. It's great
Right.
if it happens, but more often than not, it doesn't. And that's okay. And you just need to
Right.
accept
Whatever.
that. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. This has been awesome. I appreciate it, Dr. Reynolds. Yeah, any
Thank you
closing
so much for
thoughts?
having me.
This has been
You know
amazing.
what? I do have some closing thoughts. Parenting is hard. Parenting is hard. We both said there are some things we do different if we could go back. So, as parents, also don't beat yourself up because you're going to make mistakes. I think it's really important for a parent to be able to say to a child, you know what? I messed that one up. I could have done better. Let them know you're human. Let them know you're also fallible. And let them know that you're also striving to be the best parent you can be. And sometimes that comes with
Mm,
mistakes and apologize and be earnest about it and sincere about it. And when you say, I'm going to do better, then really mean it and do it. I do have final thoughts. I really do, because I think it's very important for parents to be able to show their children that they also make mistakes. we strive to be the best parents we can be. Sometimes we don't get it right. If you know you didn't get the
Yeah.
parenting right, or you made a decision that wasn't the best one, or you said something that maybe you shouldn't have said, apologize with sincerity and really mean it when you say to your kid, you know what? I messed up. That wasn't the right thing to do, but I'm going to work on doing it better. And then mean it. I think to be a little vulnerable with our teenagers and let them know that we're trying to be the best, but we fall short sometimes too, is a really powerful lesson for your child.
Wow, I love that. And what a great way to teach accountability. I mean, we can talk
Mhm.
these things. It's like as parents, we can say, you should have respect, you should be accountable, you should engage, should. But, as parents, as leaders, like what are we doing? That's a great way. Just do it, just act it,
Exactly.
right? And they just pick it up.
Yep. 100%.
That's all. Thank you, Dr. Rouse. I appreciate it. This has been amazing. So again,
Great
thank you so much
conversation.
for taking time out. And
It's
thank you,
absolutely my
everybody.
pleasure. Listen, I can talk about this stuff all day long. So
Me too.
thanks, guys.
we,
Thank you so much.
we can go on for hours. This is such a passion, I know, of yours and mine too. So, but I know you have a lot to do. There's a lot of other people, pulling on your pulling on you right now, probably trying to,
Right, right,
break your door down to get in and talk to you and need thing.
right.
So again, I appreciate it. Everybody, just want to let you know again, this is Dr. Reynolds. We
Go
want to thank
Rams.
her so much for coming on. Go Rams. And so with that being said, this is again Mike Friedman with Raising Excellence, and we are raising the bar on tomorrow's